Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our Insider Insight Show. I am honored to have two guests with us who have been through an incredible ordeal. They are incredibly courageous. They are going to open your eyes, maybe as though they've never been opened before. They have faced the onslaught of an out-of-control government and out-of-control government agencies, out-of-control representatives of the government that are supposedly there to serve and protect. That when you hear their story, it not so much serve and protect, but more harass and abuse. It is an incredible story. Garrett and Ann Kelly are with us today. A little background. Garrett is a former National Security Agency analyst who worked during the Ronald Reagan administration in the 1980s. He spent 6 years living first in southern Italy and then in northern Japan as a signal intelligence analyst. Garrett then returned to private life and served in a variety of capacities. He currently teaches at a school, and let's just say in the Midwest, and he lives with his wife Ann, who joins us here today, who is an emergency medical technician. She's on call today, so always vigilant with our in the medical profession. She might get beeped out here, so if she leaves, it's because Ann has someone to help and take care of. But they also have a family, and their family has been put through beyond a ringer and through beyond a vice. They actually wrote a book. It's available on Amazon, and I encourage you to get it. The Anatomy of a DHS ICE Homeland Security Raid. The events depicted in that book illustrate how little our constitutional rights matter to the statutory system of what's called justice. The Department of Homeland Security was completely unconcerned about the allegations that Garrett and Ann actually made about the fraudulent search warrant and dismissed their complaints with just simply a form letter. It's probably the best way to put it. When he filed suits, and they filed suits at the state and federal levels, the courts only cared about filing fees and court costs, not about justice or what was right or the rule of law. It's my honor to have with us Garrett and Ann Kelly. Ann and Garrett, welcome to the Insider Insight Show.
Thanks for having us, Dave. We appreciate it.
My first question is, you've been through a lot. You have decided to step forward, not behind a blank screen, but you there? Oh, what? How do you like that? We lost connection. It didn't take very long. It didn't take very long for them to step forward and just kind of block things. Very interesting. So let's see how long we go before they buzz in and say hi again. You've decided to step forward and put your faces on a screen, even though the powers that be just try to block that.
Right.
You decided to step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it would have been much easier to stay behind a curtain and just live your life.
Well, I think that one of the problems was that we were trying to get help from the conservative side, from Republicans and so forth. We tried to get, we got the book out relatively quickly, but I wanted to wait until Obama was out of office because I realized that was a significant problem. And so what we did was, like, shortly after he was out of office, then we wrote the book and published it. And we thought there might be some interest in it, but it actually didn't happen, which I was kind of surprised. And we sent copies to Rush Limbaugh and, Hannity and a number of different senators and congressmen, and even General Kelly, who at the time was the head of the DHS. And we never got any response. And so we thought, this is really the only way to get the story out. I mean, having a book on Amazon is one thing, but if nobody sees it or reads it or looks at it, I think maybe we sold about 200 and 250 copies, something like that. But we were really frustrated. We wanted this story to get out, but nobody was willing to take it on.
We have heard other people, various stories, local, national, of things happening like this, what had happened to them. But it's very far and few between that people have dared to come forward and show their face or mention their name and say, hey, this is what happened to us. We felt at the time, too, our daughters, 2 of our 4 kids, well, they're not kids anymore, but they were young at the time, and we wanted to kind of protect them also from any type of backlash. But we thought also now that they're grown and on their own, we thought it'd be important to step forward, put a brave face, step forward. Yes, the administration's changed, but it's important to step forward and say, hey, this is what happened to us. And hopefully we're able to help other people that this happened to not be embarrassed. This has come forward. It wasn't right. Maybe we'd be able to get some type of, lack of a better word, help. Or other people can get help, say, hey, this has happened to us. It was wrong.
And the whole idea of justice and not being able to find an avenue to get it is really frustrating. And so we feel like there's no other option than to come forward.
Outside these windows behind me is the People's Republic of Ann Arbor.
Right.
And I am constantly told that government is perfect, that government would never take advantage, government would never abuse a citizen unless that citizen is doing something nefarious. And that if there is a rogue element, that albeit incredibly rare, that would abuse the privilege of being a government official and violate the rights of a citizen, that, well, there's a backup system, the justice system. And the justice system is a life preserver that would protect that citizen.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to those folks that are on the other side of that window that are really upset with me when I disagree with them on the points I just listed?
Well, I think that it's a matter of being awake. A lot of people are not awake, and we've had that frustration in our own lives, and especially with family members who they were upset with us for even commenting on some of these conservative news websites. Mm-hmm. They thought we shouldn't have been doing that. It was like we deserved what we got, and this is coming from family members. Our friends have been much more supportive, and so anyone who really believes in free speech should really be concerned about this issue.
Garrett, as I mentioned in your introduction, you worked for years in the Reagan administration in signal intelligence, correct?
Right.
And we're going to get into exactly what happened to the 2 of you and your entire family in just a second here. But when you worked in signal intelligence under Ronald Reagan, do you believe what the 2 of you and your entire family experienced was occurring during the Reagan administration?
It would have been impossible because of the policies that they had. For example, if a target was accidentally intercepted, that information, the digital and analog tapes had to be destroyed immediately. Like we had recordings, and I can't get into details on targets and so forth, but if you accidentally picked up an ally, those digital and analog tapes had to be taken off the system and sent back to headquarters, and they would destroy the tapes. That's how serious privacy was back then. And things have changed dramatically, obviously.
And I mentioned you're an emergency medical technician.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, you're also the daughter of a police officer, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In what happened to your family,
Hmm.
could you have fathomed 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that law enforcement would have done what they did to your family?
No. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I wouldn't even think twice. I would have thought, I grew up respecting the law, the officers, military, because that's where I came from. That's all I ever known. We raised our children the same way. You respect the law, you do what you're told. If you do something wrong, you're going to be punished for it, whatever it is. However, now I just, I'm very disappointed, and I still am hurt because I don't feel the same as I did before. I don't trust people like I did before. I'm very careful and leery, and I hate to be that way. It's just something that's happened because it was betrayed by the very people that I've run into. I have dealings with on certain runs that are really bad, and I trust them. I work alongside them. I don't have any qualms about standing next to someone, an officer or a fireman or anybody like that. It's just now what we have experienced, what my daughters have gone through, what I've seen. I'm very, very disappointed.
Well, we used to get pulled over by police for like a turn signal out or something like that. It's like we just fully cooperated. But now we tend to challenge the police. I was like, why are you pulling me over? What's the purpose of this? Do you really need to do this? And one time I was driving a friend's van, and they were pulling me over repeatedly because my friend had, I think it was an outstanding warrant on him, just trivial traffic stuff. And I said, look, I'm obviously not him. You know what he looks like. Why do you keep harassing me? And then they finally backed off. But taking that posture seems to be more and more important these days in defending your rights.
Let's go back to when you started having issues. All was pretty well until around 2010, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get the foundation of what happened. What started this horrible ball of rolling, and educate our viewers and listeners on not only how it started, but then what transpired.
Okay, well, kind of started engaging shills on different conservative websites, and I began doing it as well. They were using rhetorical techniques that were not part of fair play, I would say. A lot of name calling and ridiculing and that sort of thing. And
now,
so
Garrett, what websites were you on? You were not nefarious websites. You weren't.
No, they're conservative news websites like CNS.com, Newsmax,
right. WorldNet Daily,
WND,
WND. Okay, so legit news sources
right.
that catered more to a conservative, if you will,
right.
content. Okay,
right.
Go ahead.
And so we would start engaging these shills and trolls, and at first it was just arguing, rhetorical discussion. But after a while, we realized that there were so many of them popping up on these conservative websites, and they were working together. That was the strange thing. Huh. And like you'd be attacked, for example, by one shill, and then a couple others would come along and attack as well. And so you try to convey an argument with the one shill, and then they would come at you from various angles. And so we became more and more adept over time at dealing with them in a logical fashion, which they don't like.
Well, it could be anything from a discussion that I would be having with someone, intelligent conversation with someone about, it could be what do you call it? My mind went blank.
Common
vaccines.
Core.
It could be Common Core with homeschooling your children.
At that time, Obamacare.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
And so
Obamacare was huge.
or an executive order that came out or something. And my always thing is always I was always taught to don't always believe things that people say or not really question authority, but look things up, check it out. And so what I was doing, I was back it up, what I'd be talking about, and so I approached the person or the people and say, well, this is what I found on this website. And it's not just any willy-nilly website. It was an official website. Sometimes it came from the White House itself. When you find out with an executive order, you go here. This is what it says. Or anything with homeschooling or Common Core. You go to the source, you check it out, and you bring the facts forward. And that always seemed to make people angry when you bring facts forward. That's when the name calling happened, the harassment.
And then that escalated over the years. Now, you were never name calling any of these other. You were just laying the facts out, and instead you were getting. And believe me, I know how this goes. And you get a lot of blowback and a lot of just horrible stuff being said about you and what you're. I get it. So then what happened? How did this lead to a bunch of black cars outside your house and your daughters being held captive for 3 hours? How did we get there?
Well, one of the things was whenever I would find something, we would talk, or he would be on having a discussion with somebody, which led to discourse with somebody else. We would talk about the events, and we noticed our computer would be acting funny. It would run really hard, or it would run really hard. Then all of a sudden, the mouse would have a mind of its own and be going over the places, and things would be. Our computer would be acting like there was an invisible person sitting in front of it.
And you couldn't input, you couldn't move the mouse where it would work. You couldn't input like on the keyboard or anything. The computer was taken over, and it would run really hard. You could hear it running really hard.
I'd be working on something, and all of a sudden it would flip out, and what we were working on would be gone. It would flip off to something else on the computer. Or it would just totally turn off on us.
So,
and this is a fairly brand new computer.
And this was about what year?
It was October 2012 when it started.
Okay,
and
that continued.
Yes, consistently through April of 2014.
And as a signal intelligence operative, you were a bit concerned about that, correct?
Yes, I have read a number of articles about, at least on, as far as this army of shills that were hired by the administration. I read a couple articles about it, and I was very concerned about it because I felt like it happened too soon after some of our most heated discussions. That's when it started. When the rhetoric kind of got stepped up, that's when it started. It was like October 2012.
Then what happened?
That was the timing of when it started running hard and our computer got taken over.
Okay, then what transpired?
Well, this went on for a year and a half until April of 2014. And I had in April, which is another coincidence, I had a very rousing rhetorical debate with someone, a shill, who was defending all of Obama's policies, Common Core and Obamacare and cash for clunkers. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
One of the things I was saying, well, poor people can't afford used cars anymore because it doubled the price of used cars in our area.
Point of fact.
And so, so it might have been great for the environment to get some gas hogs off the road, but the poor people were affected by that, and they didn't like that argument, and a number of other arguments. But right after that, the computer went quiet for a few months, and that was a strange thing. It seemed like it stopped, and I was almost more nervous about that because it's something had changed, and I was like, we just had this bad feeling that something was going to happen. And then in July, that's when they showed up at our door, July 16th, 2014.
So you were not at home at the time.
Correct.
Right.
Your children were
Our two daughters.
teenagers at the time.
Right. 14 and 15.
So you drive up. I think, Ann, you drove up first, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us what happened that day.
Well, what happened was we had left it, like I said, you said our daughters weren't home. Our older son was off at work. He was gone to work. And I decided to come home and I got home about 3:15, 3:30 in the afternoon from being at my sister's. We had just lost our mom the year before. We were getting ready for a yard sale. And the only communication we had at the time, I was at my sister's, was a text from my brother asking us how we were doing. Because he wasn't there to help us out. And that was all I got. And so what happened was, from then, about 3:30 I got home, I noticed there was all these cars up and down the street, and I knew right away that they were our marked squad cars, because because of my background, I know what unmarked squads look like. And then as I further drove up further on the road, there were squad cars. Some were city, a couple were city, and some were county. And then parked the car off the side of the road. I thought something happened to our daughters, because I knew they were home.
Yeah.
And I got out, and I was approached by a county deputy. He had said we were trying to get a hold of you, try to call you, and that was lie number one. Because I noticed this person that was talking to me did not call me. Nobody had called me except for my brother. And he had papers in his hand, and I had asked him, are my daughters okay? And he said, yes, they're in the house. I'm like, okay, what is going on? Because I see people coming in and out of the house. And he says, well, come inside, I will tell you. And that's when I went inside with him, and he presented me with this search warrant. And he told me it was for all electronic, anything to seize anything electronic that has to do with, what did he say? He said
anything where you can interact online, like even Kindles and cell phones.
And then we have a right to seize it or anything like that. And I'm like, what does this have to do? What is this all about? He says it has to do with file sharing, international file sharing, pornography. I'm like, and I looked at, I didn't say what I have to say. I won't say it. But I said, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm like, and I was baffled. It was just like somebody took the rug out from underneath my feet. I'm like, are you kidding me? He says, no. Where are my girls? And he said that they're in your room. And I went to my room, and that's when I did find out that the girls said that they got there about 12:30 or so in the afternoon, and they were told to sit down on the couch out in the living room. They were not able to call anybody, and they were not able to leave. So my daughters had these people ransacking the house without any phone call, without having an adult from our family or us to know what's going on or to help them.
And they also were asking them questions about you as parents, correct? And
yes.
Correct. So, educator, listen. What were they asking your daughters? I mean, just
they told us that they asked them if they were if we argued, if we hid anything in the house, if we had any place that was locked up. They knew about them being homeschooled. They know about this the new church that we were going to.
Yeah, that was really interesting that they knew about a church that we were starting, getting involved in, and they seemed very interested in that. And I thought that was really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so,
they. I kind of lost my track of my.
So then, when all this is going on, and you saw your daughters were physically okay, obviously, this is a huge abuse mentally,
they were
psychologically.
interrogated for 3 hours.
Right. So then, did you call Garrett, or was Garrett coming home from work anyway at that point?
No, he was already coming on his way home. Okay. So while I was there and the girls were in the living room there, they had me come into the kitchen and sat me down, and I had a ICE agent sitting next to me, and then I had the Buffalo County the county coroner.
Sheriff's deputy.
sit down there next to me on the other side, and he had a recorder sitting down, and then I had the county social workers, gal sitting next to him, and they introduced what they were going to do, then they turned the recorder on, and then they said what they had to do to start the recording. They started asking me questions. Do you argue with your husband? Well, I'm like, well, who doesn't argue with your spouse? Do you have a place in the house where you can't go? Does your husband have a place where you can't go in the house? I'm like, no, we have free reign.
Just to clarify, our computer, the one that we were blogging on, it was located in our kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
It was wide open, and I think they were disappointed when they found out that it was in a public space like that for everybody to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the computer that they were most interested in, was the one that was in our kitchen.
And they asked also, do you have another computer in the house? I said, well, yeah, it's in the basement, but it doesn't work. It's in pieces. It's in parts, which is true. There was a box down there. We stripped the copper out. We had all the other parts out because we were going to recycle it. There was another, and there was, I had my Kindle. I said, that doesn't work anymore. But I said, I'm sure you've already been through my room and found that. But there were questions they asked me more specifically. Does your husband have a cell phone? I'm like, no. He's why? And then right away, there's a social worker that says, well, why doesn't your husband have a cell phone? Because he doesn't like them. There are actually some people out there that don't like cell phones, and there are especially some guys that don't like talking on the phone, and he is one of them. So I'm like, I said, don't make big issues out of this. And then it was just frustrating. I cooperated because I had nothing to hide. I'm like,
right. So then, Garrett, you get home.
Right.
And what happens?
Well, at the time, I didn't know it was the site supervisor, but one of the sheriff's deputies that Ann knows quite well, he came out with me, he greeted me as soon as I got out of the door. I had my briefcase with my work laptop in it. And he told me that he wanted it. They were going to search my laptop. And I said, well, what if I don't cooperate? And he said, well, we'll take it anyway. And so I cooperated, and they took it anyway. So that didn't work out very well. But I walk into the room, and I see, as soon as I drove up, I knew what was going on. I saw some very large white SUVs with Illinois license plates on it. And I go, oh boy, here we go. I mean, I knew I had a sinking feeling as soon as I pulled in, and then the deputy came out. And, at that point, he was smiling, and he thought he had this big deal, this big bust. And, I finally took out my laptop and put it on the kitchen table so they could go through it. And it turned out they weren't even looking at it. They were mostly focused on that kitchen desktop computer. But they told me, once I got in the house, they told me what it was about. Child pornography file sharing. And we don't even know how to file share. No one in my household knew how to do it. So it was clear what this was about. And they asked me some questions, and I refused to cooperate. I mean, you watch cop shows, and you shouldn't say anything, and they can twist your words and so forth. So I just refused to say anything. And at one point, I got the opportunity to meet with girls in our bedroom, and I shut the door. I said, Ann, why are you cooperating with these guys? They'll use anything against you. You can't do that. And so, we finally came out, and we all sat together on the sofa and just kind of let them do their thing for a while. And so they were like buzzing all over the place. They had already thrown our clothes around in our room, tore up our nightstands, and just made a wreck out of the house, searching for things.
They fussed about us having weapons in the house. Well, of course we have guns in the house. We're
hunting rifles.
We hunt.
Did they
There's
take
only
those?
two.
Did they take those?
No.
No, they took one of the ones. It was a 22 rifle from my daughter's room and threw it on her bed, and she didn't like the way they threw it, and she was very angry about that. It was just very careless the way they handled it.
So out of this ransacking your house, they never found anything.
No.
Okay. And of all the analysis of your computer, they never found anything. They never
Right.
found. They never found files of sharing of pornography or anything of that nature.
Right, they did. They told me, and I have no way of confirming this. They said that there was a software program on the computer in the kitchen that helped to mask the child pornography people use to mask their internet activities. And it's like, I don't know why it was there.
What is that? Internet Explorer? I mean, it's
I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know what they were referring to. I got a little nervous at this point.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we didn't do it, but they're not going to believe us. Yep. And so I was really nervous at that point that somehow something got on there. But as far as child pornography goes, they didn't find any of that type of material.
Okay, so these guys found nothing.
Right.
They ended up leaving after how many hours?
It was about 5 hours. They left at 5:30.
But they dropped this huge bomb on you. Now all the neighbors are like, hey, what's happening to Garrett and Ann Kelly over there? What's going on? Did any neighbors come over and say, hey, you guys okay? What's going on here?
No.
No. In fact, it was kind of curious. At one point, my son came home kind of at the end, and he just got done working. He was doing a lot of lawn work, and he was dehydrated. He came home, and a couple agents confronted him outside in front of our garage. Mm-hmm. And our neighbors are right there in the front lawn watching this. And they asked him, have you been engaged in child pornography file sharing right in front of everybody? And they made a big deal for us when we went inside to keep it, kind of hush-hush. But
that's not so hush-hush now, though.
No, not at all.
And have any of these neighbors, have they ever come to you and said, hey,
not a word.
Obviously you're innocent because nobody was prosecuted because they didn't find anything. You mean the neighbors have never said to you, hey, wow, what have you been through and what can we do to help you? And this is terrible. And, no?
No.
No, not a one. In fact,
you guys need to get some better neighbors, first of all.
Well, the funny thing is, our neighbor right next door was Ann's brother.
Your family?
Sure.
Ann, your own family?
Yeah.
Your own family member right next door.
So your own family? Wait. Okay, now I'm going to tell you need to find some new family members, too. Well, no, seriously, you mean your own family did not?
Right.
I can understand people freaking out, getting upset, being scared. It's not every day you have federal agents or people in front of your house. However,
there was 11 people, by the way. 11 people were in our house.
We're laughing now.
You guys got the kind of Roger Stone treatment. I'm surprised they weren't in SWAT outfits.
Yeah. We didn't have to deal with getting thrown on the ground or anything like that or arrested. But, and one of the interesting things about the DHS agents in particular, they're constantly moving.
Yeah.
And changing subjects, like, for example, when we brought up the search warrant, always trying to change the subject.
Well, and the reason why they might have, you mentioned the search warrant, it's because the search warrant wasn't valid, was it?
No.
And that was because of the homework you did and that it was signed by somebody who was not, tell me if I'm wrong, but not authorized to sign it, correct?
Right. He was an attorney. He had been a court commissioner previously, but his commission expired in 2012, and he signed the search warrant in 2014. And I got this information right from the clerk of court's office. They gave it to me.
So they raided your home. They held your daughters hostage, essentially, for 3 hours, tarnished your reputations in front of the community, ransacked your house, took your computers that ended up no one ever found anything on, and did it all under the guise of a fraudulent search warrant.
Right. Okay. I mean, it wasn't even disputable.
And some of these people that were in your house that day, you had worked with, correct?
Yes, and I still do.
Okay. You need to find. Here we go. You need to find better people to work with. So have they ever come to you, Ann, and said, Ann, I got put in a pickle that day, and I'm really sorry that your family was abused by these government agencies, and I'm going to stick up for. Has anybody ever come to you at work?
No, nobody has.
Oh man, okay.
We called our bosses. Where we work. I called my boss and I said, look, this is what happened. Because, our pagers, everybody can hear things in Scannerland. That's in a small town,
Yeah, everybody has a scanner.
I had to tell my boss, look, this is what happened. Nothing, they didn't find anything. I said, we never did anything like this. Thank God I have a reputation with my boss. And the people I work with, they know better. It was so disgusting to even conceivably disgusting to think about. Even nobody has ever apologized to me or my family. We did go see the sheriff of our county to obtain names for the people that were at our home. The only apology was in a whisper under his breath when he handed us the names of the officers, the deputies that were involved with being at our home. And as we were turning and we were walking away, he said, I'm sorry you had to go through this. That was it.
That was it.
It wasn't to our faces. It was as we were walking out.
Right. Of this entire mess, the only government official that ever said they were sorry or they were wrong or this was not right was that sheriff when you were walking away, mumbled it softly while you were walking away. No neighbor, no
Correct.
Family member, no other government official from Department of Homeland Security, INS, the Obama administration at the time, ever came to you and said, folks, we are so sorry. We got bad information. It was somebody else's computer that wasn't here. You never had any of that.
No. It's embarrassing.
Okay.
So could they protect his character?
So yes. See, and do you so maybe their goal out of all this was they knew they didn't have anything on you. For some reason, you were targeted. Now, were they concerned, possibly, Garrett, that you were a former signal intelligence officer and that you were passing on information that you shouldn't have been passing on, not pornography, sensitive government information that you should not have been passing on? Did that ever come up?
No, it didn't. And actually, I talked to this Anthony Castillo, who seemed to be the head DHS agent. He did not know that I was a former NSA intelligence analyst because I mentioned it, and his reaction was kind of interesting because he had kind of a smirk on his face the entire time. I mean, these guys, you could tell that this was a game, that this wasn't a serious investigation. Very unprofessional behavior in the way they talked, the way they communicated, the smirks, sitting on our love seat, all comfortable. He had his legs crossed, his arm over the back, just smiling and laughing about everything. And but when I told him that I was a former NSA intelligence, he didn't know.
Yeah,
they had no idea.
And the conversation changed at that point, I imagine, correct?
A little bit. The tone changed.
Yeah, I can imagine.
He was a little nervous.
Oh, yeah, I can just imagine. Now, so the conversation's now changing. So the question I have is, why do you believe you were targeted, and who do you believe targeted you?
Well, I was pretty sure that the Obama administration had something to do with it. I mean, Obama's name was actually mentioned at the raid. But I didn't know until I watched your interview about the hammer. I had found it hard to believe that military intelligence would be involved in this in any way, shape, or form. And there's still patriots in the military. I know that.
Very much so.
But, things kind of came together when I was watching your interview about the hammer. Because while I was listening to your interview, I opened up another web page and I did a little research on it. And in the article that I looked at, there were two ways, apparently, that the Obama administration used it. One is to attack people with the IRS, and the other one was to accuse them of child pornography. Those were the two listed on the article, and all of a sudden my eyes opened up. It's like, there you go. That's the missing link that we didn't have when I wrote the book. We didn't know what approach they took, because military intelligence would not go along with a program like this. It had to be some sort of rogue element.
At the time, we had thought that maybe it would have been due to the fact that Janet Napolitano had talked about, spoke on, was it
Sunday morning news shows, Face the Nation. She was making her rounds and pretty much calling any veteran a potential extremist and like worthy of being targeted.
Christians, vets, and I thought it had to do with Operation Vigilant Eagle. And I thought, okay, well, all right. So then that morning when he got to listening to your show, then he talked about the person that had come up with that computer program to place child pornography on individuals' computers. I'm like, what did you just say? And he read the article out, and I sat down and I looked at it.
I mean, we couldn't believe it.
Like, this was the answer we've been kind of looking for the last, 4 or 5 years?
4.5 years.
And we had no help. We've been ostracized, but anything I bring up the subject, people just shut down. Like,
Nobody wants to hear
sit there and be armchair warriors and not do anything and be concerned. All you're going to do is sit there in your own comfortable living room and talk about things and not be part of helping out, trying to fix things and bring things up and talk about things. Then just go away. I don't want to talk to you. That's why we're coming forward too. It's just like it's time to not be an armchair warrior anymore. Our daughters are grown. It's just us.
Yeah, we're not concerned about our kids.
I'm not afraid of any man. It's just we've got to stand forward and say, hey, this is what happened to us. We're not the only ones. It's so frustrating that we hear about people on the news that getting around with wiping their emails and all this other stuff. Heck, if we did that, we signed a confidentiality statement when we were in the military, we would be in Leavenworth.
Yeah, just to kind of put some reference to the whole Hillary email thing, as an intelligence analyst, when I got out, I had to sign a document saying I will not share any secrets for 99 years or until I die, whatever comes first.
Right.
And if, as you probably know, there have been people who were arrested for much like the one guy on the submarine that took a picture. He wound up, going to prison. And so, the whole idea behind someone like Hillary Clinton being able to do that without any consequences, it just drives us nuts, And do
you believe some of these shills that you were in contact with or trying to reason with, that they were in fact representatives of the Obama administration. In fact, they said, "Oh, check. These people deal in facts. Let's target them." And you were targeted with the team that is in charge of indiscriminately targeting people with file sharing. In your case, as they did with a number of other individuals, targeted them, as was outlined by Dennis Montgomery with his work on the Hammer, targeted with the pornography issue. I was targeted with the IRS. That's how they came after myself and my family for 9 months, of which they failed miserably. But it was still an incredible ordeal. As nothing like what you folks had to go through. But then, after all this was done, you decided to pursue to use the justice system to correct. And it's a long story, but I want to get the basics down. You did not find that the scales of justice they've been rigged, that there is they're rigged against, if you will, those that are not part of the syndicate, the 90, the 1%. Briefly take us through. You sought help from attorneys. You sought, I believe, state courts, federal courts. Needless to say, I'm sure that there were some judges that were supportive of your efforts, and there was some restitution, correct?
Right. Well, the interesting thing about where we're located, there's a statute that says any violation of privacy allows for an equitable remedy, which means chancery court. But there's no chancery court where we live. And so there's promises in the statutes that you can get a remedy, but it doesn't exist. And indeed, I tried to file a local suit in a circuit court, and it didn't work because, anytime you file in chancery court, your name will be properly spelled in upper and lowercase letters. And my name was not spelled correctly. So I knew that I hadn't accessed chancery court. So I gave up there. I went to a district court, and same thing. In fact, it was very interesting, like when you tell someone at the front desk at the district court that you want to file a bill in equity, they pretend like they don't know what it is. But then if you insist on it, it's interesting that the shill who's standing at the desk, he will sit down, and there's like some sort of weird unspoken signal, and then another person comes behind a partition and comes up and it looks like they're putting you in a chancery suit because the lettering system's different. It's not CV, but just the capital letter C. And they have an old stamp and so forth. So they do this elaborate, it's all fraud. They do this elaborate thing, making you think that you are filing an equity suit, which appears to be dead in our country. There are some equity courts, and I did try some of them, but in this particular district court, eventually the suit goes back to your name in all capital letters. It's a statutory administrative lawsuit. So I gave up there. I tried and one of the things that we were looking at is we were examining these court websites. The scales aren't balanced, and if you have like the eye in the pyramid, sometimes you'll see that in the background. Yes. That's all fraud. And anytime where you see a court where it's not balanced, it's all fraud. And so eventually I gave up. I tried the Court of Federal Claims in Washington, D.C. What's that? I tried the Chancery Court in the state of Delaware. And one of the reasons why I chose Delaware is because they have what they call a long reach statute, which allows them to go after defendants who are in another state. But that didn't work out. That went all the way to trial, and after spending a couple $1,000, suddenly they changed the spelling of my name. I was originally in Chancery, and they flipped it over to the statutory side, and they dismissed it with a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo. In equity jurisprudence, none of it is legal mumbo jumbo. It's all equity maxims. That's how they come to conclusions.
And
so
you
finally, we tried in Puerto Rico, which does have equity, but they have all Article 3 judges in Puerto Rico. But even there, we got kind of the same treatment. And so, and they kept Puerto Rico, all the scales are balanced. If you go to a law office, the scales are balanced. And so we believed that was the place to go, but it turned out.
And you were repetitively told, well, you really can't show any financial damages, so there's really no suit here. Isn't that correct?
A lawyer. I spoke to a lawyer, and emotional damage or damage to reputation. I mean, there had to be some sort of physical injury, like they actually punched you or slammed you down on the ground or something like that.
And when they left your house that day, they took your kitchen computer with them?
No, not the kitchen computer. They took my laptop. They bagged up my laptop, even though I cooperated.
What about the kitchen computer?
They just left it.
They did something to it where I could see some type of program they were able to access the computer, and it was doing some weird things, scrolling through all of our files or whatever.
Yeah, a bunch of screens kept flipping and flipping and flipping, and they were looking for something. I mean, it basically violated our privacy. They went through everything on that computer.
So there was a deputy that walked up to me in the living room where I was sitting, and he says, he told me, and we didn't find anything. And I looked at him, I said, you think?
Surprise. So nobody ever came back to your house?
No, never.
And nobody ever called you and said, well, we're considering pressing charge. You never got any of that?
No.
Okay.
No.
So they obviously were trying to send a message to you.
Right.
What was the message they were trying to send to you?
They silenced us. They said, and it worked. We stopped blogging. That was the whole intent, was to shut us up. And it worked.
It's interesting you say that because when the IRS was harassing myself and my family, they actually said to our accountants when they walked in to meet with them, because I said to the accountants, ask them why we're being audited, because we've never had an issue. We don't have any offshore investments. We invest in our kids' education. They said, well, what do you think they're going to say? I go, they're going to say it has to do with my radio show and my opposition to Obamacare. They're not going to say that, Dave. They walked in. The first question our accountants asked the IRS agents were, why are they being audited? They already give you a lot of money. They've never had an issue. Why are they said, Dave, we couldn't believe it. They look straight at us, and it has everything. It starts with his radio show.
Right.
And the message repetitively during that 9-month harassment-based audit, which they got no unreported income. That's what they were looking for. They got zero. Was this message given, stop the radio show, shut up, and this goes away.
Right. Yeah, they just used a different technique on us, but it was effective. I mean, we're doing some blogging now, but it's not like it was. Like we were like really at it pretty much every day. But today we don't do much of it.
So this raid happened in 2014.
Right.
Here we are, years later, and the neighbors still have not come to you and spoken to you about this?
No.
No, we don't live in the same place.
But they still haven't come to us at family events or anything and approached us and talked about it.
Your family member.
Yeah, her.
It's a white elephant in the room.
Right. Her brother will not. No. They get very uncomfortable if we say anything about it.
They get uncomfortable. Why? Because they were Because they were cowards, and they just hung back and continue to hang. Is that why they're uncomfortable? Because they're cowards?
I think the issue is that they think that we should just shut up and not cause problems.
So maybe I got this wrong. Maybe tell me. I obviously have this wrong because there was a gross violation of your First and Fourth Amendment rights, as I see it.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. In addition to denigrating both of you and your family, and frankly, putting your daughters in a situation that no matter what anyone says, you go through that like they did, and it changes you for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both can't stand police officers.
So your friends, your family, your coworkers believe the First and Fourth Amendments of the Constitution should just be used as toilet paper? Is that what? Because that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
More or less.
A lot of people around here, we're hardworking blue collar workers, and you own a gun. Your rifle is for self defense. That's the first thing, and you go hunting. It's a way of life up here. It's just. But when you want to talk about, maybe it seems like you're ruffling a few feathers or making ripples. Yeah, I don't know. And like I said, there's a lot of armchair warriors around here, and for us, we're scrappers. And it's not because we choose and pick our battles. However, when there's something wrong, you stand up and you say something. You defend it.
So Andrew McCabe from the FBI recently was on 60 Minutes, and he was talking about the fact that they were having these meetings in the Justice Department about how they were going to try to essentially remove a duly elected president of the United States, Donald Trump, essentially sedition, by trying to slap a 25th Amendment charge on him that he wasn't of right mind or physical, but whatever. Now, many people, 100% of people outside that window in Ann Arbor, Michigan, People's Republic of Ann Arbor, believe that, this was a rogue guy, and, they were picking on Trump because, he's, the president of the United States. The point is when you have people that are rogue in the government, they just don't stop with Donald Trump. Exactly. They go after people like yourselves who are hardworking, honest, just great community members, service of the community as a teacher, service of the community as a EMT. If you don't think the way they want you to think, well, you're on the plate, aren't you?
Yeah. You are.
And Garrett, you have a background with the NSA, as I mentioned, in signal intelligence. And when you left the NSA, do you believe that never could have happened back then?
Oh, for sure. At least when Reagan was president.
So what happened? What happened between January of 1989 when he left office and when this goat rodeo started for you and your family in 2010 and continues to this date? What changed?
It's clearly the Patriot Act. That's what changed. Because we can all be targeted now. That wasn't the case prior to the Patriot Act. So that's what they're using.
And that wasn't Barack Obama who did the Patriot Act, was it?
No. Right.
That was George W. Bush.
Exactly.
But hey, thank you, W. And I'm going to use it as Barack Obama. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, it's almost like a tag team match where one president will take over for the previous president.
Springboard thing.
It's this kind of this back and forth.
I want to thank the two of you. I want to thank your entire family. The family that cares about the Constitution. The part of your family that cares about the Constitution. Okay? That being your kids and the two of you. The rest of your family, me, Stabeacon, not you. The rest of your family, in my mind, is a disgrace. A disgrace to this country. A disgrace to you as their relatives. You're too damn good to be their relatives as far as I'm concerned. And I want to thank you. Because you know what? Most people that were put in this type of situation would have curled up in a little ball. And maybe this is what they were hoping. Not just shut up. But went away. And not only just move away, just leave the planet. And it took a tremendous amount of courage for the two of you and your children to, one, stay together as a family unit, and two, to have the courage to step forward and say, look, this happened to me. It could happen to you. You have to be aware. Now, I'd like to think that with the current administration, that this type of nefarious activity would be over and done with. The problem is there are still some deep state players that have not been rooted out that still could cause a problem. And here is my hope. We have a big listening audience and viewing audience. It is my hope that anyone that currently is in a position in government, local, state, federal, if you know that there is somebody that is doing this type of abuse, that you step forward, you go to the whistleblowers program, and you finger and out the criminals that are doing this to honest individuals such as Garrett and Ann Kelly. And I want to thank you, because you didn't have to step forward. And you didn't have to write, and you didn't have to put it in writing, the book. And I just hope somewhere along the line that you find friends and family that are worthy of being in your presence, because so far you got a bunch of losers as family members and as supposed friends and as community members and people who you work with.
Right. That probably hurts the most for, Ann, in that she works with these deputies like on a regular basis.
Ann, you're a much bigger person, better person than I would be. I couldn't do it.
Well, trust me, the lights are down and the doors are shut. The air's been pretty blue around here a few times, and I've put on my verbal boxing gloves and I just duked it out. But yeah,
you're a much bigger and better person than Dave Jana could ever be. I thank you for being incredible patriots. Incredible patriots. One of the misnomers of the MAGA, if you will, movement, Make America Great Again movement, is that it's one person, Donald Trump.
Right.
It's not. It's people like yourselves. It's people like yourselves that make America great again. For standing up for the Constitution. For not only your rights, but the rights of every American. Because if you are silent, then their rights are put on the line. And I thank you. I thank you for everything you have done, everything you are doing, and everything you will do. And by the way, your kids are incredibly lucky to have the parents that they do.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Folks, you've been listening to the Insider Insight Show. Share this with as many people as you can. I hope your family has a little bit more courage than Garrett and Ann Kelly's family. That your friends are better friends than Garrett and Ann Kelly. Get the book and network what they've been through and what they have done for your rights and your freedoms. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail.